Welcome to RetroLogic. I'm Sam Wagers here with Shannon Eno and John Cummins. Dan could not join us this time around. He is on the road, but he will be back. So keep an ear out for Dan to be your host next time. In the meantime, you're stuck with me, I guess. But that's because I picked the topic this week.
That's right.
So we'll be talking about Civilization, a series which surprisingly not as many of us have a lot of experience with. But all the same, a very significant one that deserves mention. Of course, since Civilization 7 has released today officially, there was the early access pass up. But aside from that, anything else interesting happen? I know over on the Discord, we finally got some competition for Kururin. Micah and I have been going back and forth just today. This is what happens on the rare occasion I have no assignments for my classes, which is like the first time that's happened this quarter. I turned one in yesterday and I haven't gotten a new one, which is crazy. So I've been beating Micah's times and shooting some back. I actually, funnily enough, so all credit to Micah. The first time I actually had one in the chamber. Like last weekend, I cut my time down by like 2 seconds, like just in case anybody beat it, and he beat that time too. So I had to work pretty hard to come back. So we'll see.
Well, and then he came back again.
If he can beat my latest, I think it's his. Because I don't know how I can do better. I
guys are really close.
Well, yeah, I had like a breakthrough where I realized I could skip 2 springs by intentionally hitting the wall at one point, which gives you a 3-second penalty, but it saved more time than I lost. So that I assume he had to have done the same thing in order to beat that. And the last one, it was literally like 1/10 of a second. So, yeah.
Well, we'll see. He is one of our. He is one of
quite
the most competitive.
So
yeah.
He usually shows up whenever there's a time trial or something on the line.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Bozo.
And it's a great game, so I just want people to play it.
I got to get back to it.
It's one of those that's just super interesting. One of those definitely more obscure Nintendo IPs. Did have a couple follow-up games, but this is the only one that released in the USA. And an assist trophy in Smash. So, what's up with you guys?
I've just been still making my way through Tales of Graces F on the Switch that re-released. Still having a really good time with it. It definitely just feels so snappy and good, and like this is the way that if you're going to do a re-release of some kind, this one was well done.
So it's a re-release. Is Graces, where does that, is that like an earlier game or a later game?
No, I mean it was on the Wii. Originally it was on the Wii, but only in Japan, and then it was released worldwide on PS3. So to be fair, it's not super old, so maybe it wasn't as difficult, but they threw in like all the DLC stuff and they basically unlocked the game. So in Tales of Games, typically you do a playthrough, and during your initial playthrough, you're earning something called grade. And the games handle it a little differently. It depends on the game. Some of them it depends on like what you do in battle, how well you perform in battles and things like that. That's kind of Symphonia. But there's other ways to do it. Sometimes it's just for unlocking different things in the game, beating bosses, finding hidden things. But anyway, and then if you go back after you beat the game initially, you open up a grade shop, and you can use your grade to then unlock things like gaining, 5 times the experience in battles, or getting half experience in battles, or basically you can make the game harder or easier, and then like, you know, keeping all your spells or your arts or whatever. This re-release, they unlock that from the start and give you full grade so that you can buy whatever you want, and then you can turn most of them on or off in the options. So if you want to start and make the game super easy or super hard right from your beginning playthrough, it's all right there. You can turn on and off random encounters. It gives a lot of options right out of the gate, which I kind of liked. So that's all in there. So I've been doing that, and then we've been playing some more Dokapon Kingdom. We got another play session of that in with Tim, Sam, and I.
That's right.
And
you were in the lead at the end of this one, right?
Yeah, it went from, I was getting beat up pretty bad by the computer and everything, and it's just like I spent more time dead, I think, than turns I had that first round we played, or the first play session. And then the second one, things kind of turned around, and then I took over a castle, and then I kind of got bumped up, and then I started having better luck with things. And Tim just like started getting beat up by everything. And then right at the end of the game, I decided
Tim
to challenge him.
Lost to like a level 4 monster, which was pretty hilarious.
Yes, because he was like, he's the highest level, I think, of all of us too. And then I decided to challenge him just for fun, because it's just part of the fun and charm of the game. And if you challenge somebody and you beat them, another playable character or player character or a computer player, you can either steal one of their items, or you can do some kind of punishment, like change their haircut. And so they could be like, suddenly they have like a bald spot or whatever in their head, or you can change their name. You can't choose the name, but you can just say change their name.
That is a change in Kinect, actually. So
okay.
The original game, it opened up the little keyboard. You could type in what you want. I think they were concerned about online people,
right. Makes sense.
harassing
right.
beyond what's acceptable just between friends.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I
oddly enough, that's not true of the recent Sword of Fury. That one still lets you change names to whatever you want.
Huh. So yeah, I chose to have it change his name. So he became Yellow Teeth. The game calls him Yellow Teeth. I do
appreciate, like, the randomly generated name changes are pretty great.
Yes. So then he changed his name in Discord for a few days to Yellow Teeth.
I've seen that.
Yep. That is like the truly great thing about Dokapon Kingdom, and why I always want other people to play it with me, is that's really like peak game experience there, is to be, because I instigated this fight. Shannon left that out, but I was goading him into it. And that's the best part of it, is to be the devil on your friend's shoulder, whispering to him,
he's like,
telling him to attack your other friend, and then telling him to just prank him instead of actually like take a useful thing,
right?
Like take his weapon or something.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun playing. Like, this is definitely something that if you're going to playing against other people, friends, it definitely is going to enhance your enjoyment of the game, I think. But yeah, having a lot of fun doing that. I think that's pretty much it. I haven't had much time to do anything else.
Does it have local multiplayer as well?
Yes. Yeah, of course. It's turn-based. There's no reason not to.
Okay.
I guess you do need 2 controllers, because when you're fighting other players, you input at the same time, hidden from each other, what your commands are going to be.
I was just thinking it might be something I need to play with kids. They might enjoy it.
They probably would. It's definitely a long game. I mean, we've only played 2 sessions, but we've got a good
story
4+
mode
hours in.
I mean, even with other CPUs, and setting them to do fast turns, story mode probably takes around like 8 hours.
Yeah.
It depends. It also depends very much how. If you have a group of people who aren't interfering with each other as much, it could go a lot faster. But there are a lot of ways to slow other people down and very few to speed yourself up. So that factors in a lot too.
Yeah.
Nice. I've just been playing some more Xenoblade, or not Xenoblade. That's not out yet. Xenogears, still trying to power through that. I'm about 20 hours in now. Still enjoying it. And then I've been playing Shadows of Mordor on the side to kind of mix it up, have like some action game with the RPG that's mostly reading. I'm still amazed at like how good it looks for PlayStation, and also like how well done it is. Thinking that it's only a couple of years after Chrono Trigger even, and it has that same kind of like magic feel to it. To me, it's definitely different than most Final Fantasy games at that time even. So they were definitely doing something different. Feels good. And then of course I've been reading all the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I read The Hobbit not last week, the week before. So I've actually been spending more time reading than playing games, surprisingly.
Nice.
But that's pretty much it for me, other than buying stuff I don't need.
Okay. Well, this is just your reminder that RetroLogic is not just a podcast, but it is a whole community of retro gamers. We have an active, friendly, and free Discord with giveaways, contests, and a whole family of retro podcasts like RetroGroove and On Topic Retro, as well as FilmLogic. I believe they just had an episode the other day. I think I saw something.
They've been putting out pretty regularly.
Yeah, they've been on top of it.
They've been letting Tubi decide like random Tubi movies or something like that.
Very interesting movies that you can get all about. So you can find out all about that on our website, retrologic.games, as well as the Discord. You can go try to dethrone my Kururin time for Ocean 3. If you think you have what it takes, I will welcome the competition. And yeah, just hang out. We've got a great community of people who love retro games and other things like dinosaurs as well.
Pizza.
So yeah, check out, and pizza without pineapple usually.
No, with pineapple.
Don't bring that up though.
Hey, we're 2-1 against you on
one
this
other
show.
thing that we like to do is play The Price is Retro. So yeah, is everybody ready?
Let's do it.
If this is your first time playing The Price is Retro, here is how we play. I am going to list off 4 or 5 games. Everyone has to guess how much the lot is worth in total. Whoever is closest to the actual value wins that round. Everyone has a list. Everyone guesses on each other's list. And at the end, the player that won the most rounds wins the episode. But watch out for our trio, the robot Deus Guess Machina, who averages all our guesses for his own guess, the poltergeist, the ghost, who guesses 300 every time, and the dinosaur, who guesses the retail price of the games when they released, added up. So, yeah, we all have lists. I'm excited about my list, so I'll just jump right into mine. Am I allowed to do that? Is the host allowed to go first?
Sure.
You're the host.
Yeah. Oh, I want these in a particular order. But I have 5 games this time. They are all complete, but they're all on different platforms. So I have CPU Bach for the 3DO, complete in box.
Oh boy.
Interestingly enough, the rest of this list is not related in this way, but I believe this is Sid Meier's first game he made after creating Firaxis, leaving Microprose to create Firaxis. I think this is the first game he made after that. Eternal Sonata for the Xbox 360. Rhapsody, a musical adventure, PlayStation. Also complete. They're all complete. Brutal Legend for the PlayStation 3, complete. And lastly, Beethoven for the Super Nintendo, complete.
As in the dog?
Yes, that is the Saint Bernard,
Okay.
not the composer. But I just thought it was fun to end the list that way.
I guess I'll go first.
Do you want to go first?
Let's see. I am going to do 320.
320.
And I am now worried that I am painfully under. That 3DO just makes me really nervous, but I'm going 200.
200. Okay, well, tally up what the dyno has. Otherwise, I think Shannon's got it at 217.11.
Ooh.
So he's definitely closer than the Ghost, closer than the Robot.
Hold on, you said 200 and what?
$217.11. So I'll give you the rundown. CPU Bach for the 3DO, $39.99.
Oh.
Eternal Sonata for the 360, $18. Rhapsody, a musical adventure for the PlayStation, $90.
Oh.
Brutal Legend for the PS3, $10.64, and Beethoven for the Super Nintendo, $58.48.
So if I just switched the 3DO with the PlayStation in my guesses.
Well,
so
if it's a PS1 RPG, it's usually going to be like at least $65.
Yeah, that's true.
I knew Rhapsody
with a
was
few
high.
exceptions. Yeah.
I was expecting that 3DO game to be a little bit more, maybe.
Yep. Yeah, Xbox 360, PS3 games generally still pretty cheap. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I own all those, but Beethoven in the first game, the 3DO game.
Yeah, CPU box seems like something that could be like really rare.
I have an original Sid Meier's Pirates for the Commodore, like complete in box for Microprose. Okay. Who's going next?
I can go next.
Okay.
All right.
I have got so my list is I pulled a random issue of Nintendo Power from my collection, and happened to pull I believe it's issue 27 from August 1991, and games featured inside. These are all NES games. They are all loose. I tried to be a little nice to you guys.
4 games?
5 games.
5 games.
Okay. 5 games, all loose.
That makes it easier for me to do the dyno.
All right. That's true. First one is Kickmaster. Second one, Nightshade. Third one is Captain Planet. Fourth one is Lone Ranger. And the fifth one is Vice Project Doom.
You said loose? Or
they're all loose.
Doom.
All loose.
Yep.
Okay.
That is one of my like NSO highlights, by the way. I know I've mentioned it. It's been a while since I mentioned it on the show, but
yeah,
that is one of the games I actually really encourage people to actually try on NSO because it's
actually
really
not
good.
a bad game.
Like honestly, it's a lot like Ninja Gaiden, except a little bit more fair.
Yeah, and if you need a little bit of strategy help, you just pick up issue 27 in Nintendo Power, and you can get some classified info.
There's also the weird thing that like the first level is like Spy Hunter, but then the rest of the game isn't. But yeah, it's an interesting game.
God, I this is beside the point, but I really like Spy Hunter.
Spy Hunter is good.
It's actually kind of low-key kind of fun.
Especially
Especially
one
arcade.
other level like that towards the end of the game, but the rest of it plays like Ninja Gaiden.
Xander first, guess-wise.
Yes, that's right. Oh, I forgot what my total was. $108.
108. Okay.
I'm doing 180.
80. Uh-oh, guys. I think this one might go to the Ghost. Actual is 281.75.
Yep, that was easy prey for the Ghost at that value.
That is the Ghost. Yep. Dino is somewhat close, 225.
Yep. So rundown, Kickmaster 110.34. Yeah. Which I had to look up because I really
I'm
not familiar with it.
That sounded like the sort of thing that would just be like at the bottom of the bin, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Kickmaster, sure, whatever.
Nightshade, $24.99. Captain Planet, $22.49. Lone Ranger, $68.93. And Vice Project Doom, $55.
Man. That definitely got me.
Yep. All right.
So it looks like it's either Shannon or the Dinos.
Yep.
Or we could split it.
You're the last hope of humanity once again.
See what I can do.
So my list is all Super Nintendo games. They're all complete. And they are all from Enix.
Wow.
Because I happened to put together a list for PlayStation, so I was like, let's go back to Super Nintendo and see what that entails. So I just grabbed a few from there. The first game is Robo Trek. The second game is Brain Lord. The third game is Illusion of Gaia. And the fourth game is Paladin's Quest. These are all complete.
Let me just a second. I know I gotta go first here. All right. I have 285. I think I'm low though.
I also think you're low. I have 450.
Okay. So the total for my lot is $580.81.
I don't know what I was thinking.
So now we have the tiebreaker.
It's probably low on the rest.
Let's see. That I think it's going to go to Shannon.
Shannon's much closer. Guess what?
Yeah. Oh, hold on a minute.
Like $17 on mine. Wow, between the humans, I don't know how close. Usually we give humans preferential treatment.
That's right.
Yeah. With a three-way tie, though, I was going to try to at least look at it. But I think Shannon, you still beat the Ghost by $2. Because I think the Ghost was like $18.25. That is about a little bit over $1.
Give us the rundown on your lot, because I know RoboTrek's probably like over 200.
That was the one I was really unsure of, and then I started second guessing myself.
I wanted to buy this game, and like loose, it's like over 100.
Yeah. So RoboTrek complete is $259.04.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Brain Lord complete is $135.75.
That's more than I would have thought. It's pretty cheap loose.
Yeah. Illusion of Gaia is actually the cheapest at $91.35.
I was almost right on with that one.
Paladin's Quest $94.67, which
I was almost right on with that one.
I need to find a copy
low.
of.
So I basically thought Brain Lord's probably at least, or I thought, I think I had RoboTrek at like 180 and then like 80 a piece for the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the ones I screwed up. Well,
so not
all right.
Off,
I'll still take it.
Low on all of them.
I mean, Shannon is now tied with the robots again, I think, or the Rampage. Because I think last week they won, right?
Yes.
Yes.
They won in the last one.
Or no.
They get stronger when we have everybody
I
on.
won.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So I guess actually, let's see. Shannon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, counting today. And then the Rampage has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Shannon just took the lead. I have 1 win, or 2
Take him down.
wins. Sam has 2 wins, and Dan has a single win. I think maybe he's only been on the show, I think, twice this season. So to have a win is actually probably a better percentage than the rest of us. 1 for 2. Yeah.
Batting 500. All right. Do we have a trivia card? And I think you said you have a
I have a trivia card, and I have another little game here. We'll do the other game. We'll save the trivia card for last. I don't think this is going to be an overly difficult game, but it's more just kind of for fun. So when I was going through the Nintendo Power, looking for these games, there was a bunch of previews, and because this was around, of course, the trade show time of year, Consumers Electronic trade show. So there was a bunch of previews, and I took 3 games here, and 2 of them never actually released, and 1 of them did. So we'll see if you guys can figure out which one actually released. The first one is Triumph, which is a RPG board game. The second one is Super Mario Brothers Friends Electronic Crayons, teaching kids about growing up. And the third one is Bioforce Ape, which is a beat 'em up starring a bioengineered chimpanzee, which is right up Dan's alley. So which one of these actually released?
I feel like the board game is the most plausible.
Yeah, I don't know. I just want Bioforce Ape to be real.
Or the crayons. I have a
the
feeling crayons
seems
are
plausible, but I mean, there's probably tons of those kinds of ideas that just didn't get off the ground.
I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to go with the board game.
I say Bioforce Ape. I believe in the chimpanzee.
Unfortunately, it was neither of those. It was actually the Super Mario Brothers and Friends Electronic Crayons for PC, telling kids about different jobs they can have growing up. Released for a PC at that time.
Oh, wow.
So Bioforce 8, they show a lot of like the actual, shots from the game, images, and this seems like the awesomest game that never actually materialized, unfortunately. But yes, it sounds amazing, and it would have been Dan's favorite game. There's even Minecart, like it was supposed to be the most fast-paced NES game ever to be released. You even had this bioengineered chimpanzee on minecarts in several of the levels. Triumph, I guess technically did, I guess this is kind of a trick question. Triumph did actually release in Japan under a different name, and was supposed to come out. They made a complete English version, but then it was, I believe, I should have looked it up. I think it was a Hudson game, and they canceled it right before release. So, but it sounds very much in the vein of Dokapon Kingdom. So, unfortunately, Sam, you never got that one, and Dan never got Bioforce Ape. And we all got Super Mario Brothers and Friends Electronic Crayons, and the world is a sadder place because of it. All right. Trivia card game. What are the nicknames for the 4 Pac-Man ghosts?
Nicknames?
Oh, gosh.
I thought they were just their names.
What are their names?
Pinky, Blinky, and Clyde.
Yep. And Wow, this is an easy card overall. You just never know with these cards. Which 3 letters were used for the face buttons on the original Sega Mega Drive controller?
A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. That's it.
So
I guess that is, well, Nintendo has had C buttons sometimes.
And well, maybe there might
Usually
be a C
we go
button
A,
on
B,
Switch
X,
too.
Y is more common, I guess. Yeah.
Well,
So
we
how
may
much,
or may not have one on Switch too.
how much do you guys think that Super Mario Brothers and Friends When I Grow Up cost?
Oh, geez, I should have looked it up.
$2,000.
I can't even imagine there's a lot of trade. Like, how would you even know? I'm gonna go 500.
The last one there is no data for a complete. The last loose one went for $40.
Oh,
okay.
But
You
when
gotta
I
go
look
get
on
it.
eBay, there's only 2 listings, and one of them is $400, and the other one is $3,000. So I was kind of confused.
so we were both
So
kind of
we're
close
both
there.
really close.
Yes.
That's right.
I was like, I think price charting is a little bit.
Well,
off.
there are a lot of those where if you look at them, there's just not a lot of data. But,
And then there's a listing that's just books, and one of them is Super Mario Brothers Adventures, the manga. Like it's a listing that's a group of books, and the other one next to it is Weird Al Yankovic's When I Grow Up. so it's kind of a weird.
Okay.
I
Well,
was like, okay.
they're all about growing up, right?
I guess. Yeah, no, this is really funny. This has got.
Who are you going to tell you? Who are you going to let tell you what to be when you grow up? Mario
I don't
or
know.
Weird Al?
Oh,
are your
that's a good
choices.
question.
The cover of that game has Mario as a police officer and Luigi as a fireman,
Yep.
which is just weird. It does have the Nintendo seal of approval, though.
Yes. And I think it's basically a coloring book, PC coloring book. Nintendo should completely
is.
drop it on NSO. It would sell subscriptions right there.
Yeah.
A whole new tier just to get it.
Comes on a 3.5 IBM floppy.
Feels like it would probably have the same energy as that like Mega Man cartoon that exists to promote tourism to Japan. I've watched the whole thing because of course I have.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen clips of that?
I don't know
It's
if I
weird.
have.
It's really weird. But it's kind of wholesome, and it's actually like one of the better adaptations of Mega Man from that time period.
Does
But
he
yeah,
say
it's
everything
just
is
like-
mega cool, though?
No, he does not.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of sad that it's like way more accurate to the games than like the Ruby Spears cartoon or Captain N or anything
Captain
we got
N.
over here. But it is in English because it existed to like encourage people to vacation to Japan. So it's like
Nice.
Mega Man learning about Japanese culture because he's a robot and doesn't understand it. I guess. Anyway, we'll move on to our show topic after a quick break, which is about culture and civilization.
That's right.
Welcome back to the show. We are talking about the Civilization series, landmark in the strategy genre. Definitely more of a PC game, at least that's what I still think of it as. Of course, these days it's out on consoles. Civ 7 released on consoles the same time as PC. And yeah, some people have some feelings about that, of it being designed for console and whether or not that's a good thing. But I do. It is funny how you get that kind of impression. You think of it as a PC game. At least I still do. you kind of associate games with platforms, even when they are multi-platform. But all the way back in 1991, the original Sid Meier's Civilization, released on PC, developed by Microprose, and is kind of the codifier of what a lot of people have taken to calling the 4X genre. I don't particularly like that name. I think the distinction is kind of blurry anyway. But there are definitely other games like it. It's not the only one. And one thing I found interesting, just as I was kind of looking through some info, is how a lot of other big names in strategy games worked on the Civ series. So, of course, you have Sid Meier himself, who would leave the company to found Firaxis in 1996. He went on to make not just CPU Bach, but other stuff like Sid Meier's Pirates. I think Pirates Gold was after Civ. I think the original Pirates was before. Alpha Centauri, Railroad Tycoon. He actually did not really work much on the later games in the series. He was brought back kind of in a consulting role for Civ 2, and I think his name appears in the credits of the more recent games as well. I'm not really sure in what capacity, but it's kind of one, because his name's still in the title. They're all technically still Sid Meier's Civilization 7, up to 7 now. But there's also people like Bruce Shelley and Brian Reynolds. So Bruce Shelley was pretty involved in the first game. Brian Reynolds was the lead developer on Civilization 2, and they would go on to co-create the Age of Empires series. And Brian Reynolds also would later create Rise of Nations, which I don't know if that's a game you guys have played, but I've played quite a bit of that. And I do remember it kind of striking me as this is like a hybrid of Age of Empires and Civilization, and that makes a lot of sense now that I know there is a connection there in terms of who made it. And Soren Johnson, the lead developer of Civ 3 and 4, would also create Spore, and more recently a game called Off-World Trading Company, which seems to have done pretty well. I don't know much about it beyond that, but Spore was at least familiar.
Spore was huge.
Yeah.
Yep. So it really just comes to show, like, especially the strategy genre, especially PC gaming, like, Civilization is kind of a granddaddy game when it comes to all that. A landmark title, really kind of deserving of some attention. So with a new installment out, thought it would be a good idea to look back on some of the previous games in the series. Most of my experience is with the more recent games. I was just pulling up on Steam. I have over 300 hours on Civilization 6. It's one of the games I've played the most out of any. That I at least have an hour count. I think Smash Bros. Might be up there. I lost track when I upgraded to the Switch OLED, so I didn't do the right thing to carry that over. But yeah, anyway, I played a lot of Civ 5. I remember playing Civ 4, but I don't remember much about it. I played a lot of Civ 5. And even more of Civ 6. And in each case, I kind of never went back to the previous iterations. There are people who have strong preferences for the earlier games. But I don't think I really can say I've ever played 1, 2, or 3. I did play a demo of Beyond Earth, which is a game that ultimately I don't think did very well or was well received. That, I think, came out after 6. So that was sort of Civilization 6.5 / kind of a reboot of Alpha Centauri. And yeah, it really was one of those where I don't think it was even bad, but it made me want to play Civ 6 instead. Which is just kind of the problem you have with some of those. So Shannon, you said you played some Civilization 2 back in the day, right?
Yeah, so that's really the only one I have any experience with. And when I look and saw that it was like came out in 96, that number one, that made me again feel really old, but also made my memory a little cloudy of trying to remember exactly what it was. I I remember playing it at school when we were supposed to be doing other things in computer class or whatever, and we would some buddies of mine would quickly get through whatever, and then my buddy had the disc. I can't even say it was not a bootleg copy. That's very possible at that time, but I remember playing a bit at that time because what kind of stuck out to me was the fact that in the game you have advisors that you can like have advise you at any time. Click on a little advisor thing, and it was one of the first games that I can remember that that had like some like actual actors playing some parts of the video recording and putting in there, kind of like they do in the Myst games as well, from around that time period too. But you could click on and see what they advise you to do, like raise this kind of tax or whatever. And I just remember one of them was Elvis, or at least supposed to be like Elvis. He was dressed like kind of like Elvis, and he talked like Elvis. And he was your advisor of, I'm trying to remember, John looked it up here
like
before the show.
Entertainment or something like that.
Yeah, of entertainment or something. I was thinking of style or something. Yeah, but it was something or attitude. I think it was attitude.
Attitude, yes.
Attitude, yes. Your advisor of attitude, and the rest of the advisors were a lot more straight laced, kind of, and rarely agreed with him. They'd always be like, "Oh, I disagree." But I remember just thinking how fun and kind of cool that was. And the Civilization games is always something on paper that I'm like, I should really be into these. I remember liking what I played of it, but then I never went any further in the series. I kind of branched off and ended up kind of doing more of the real-time strategy stuff, the Age of Empires, Age of Mythology, those games. And just kind of left the turn-based strategy games kind of behind. So it's something I've kind of been thinking like, hey, I should kind of check, because these are the kind of, they're similar to a lot of the board games and stuff like that I enjoy playing, the tabletop games, where
I
the
believe
strategy
there is a Civilization
yes,
board game.
I have seen it.
I've never played it.
Yeah.
I always wondered if it was like an absolute nightmare to set up because of what I know about the video game. But I'm sure it's very simplified for ease of play. But
well, you'd say that, but a lot of those tabletop strategy type games are not all that. They're usually, if it's possible, even more complicated than.
I mean, yeah, I've played some pretty complicated like worker placement type board games, and this definitely seems like it would be that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm wondering if we should kind of describe, like in a nutshell, like in a elevator pitch, what exactly is the game? Like, what is the idea of the game? Just in case somebody doesn't kind of have that knowledge.
So Civilization was kind of conceived coming off the popularity of SimCity and Populous and other games like that, especially in the PC space. So it was really kind of the logical next step of, instead of just building up cities, let's do whole nations, right? I think one of the things that really defines it for me is, and this is kind of interesting, maybe as somebody who came to it in its more modern iterations, but one of the things that kind of defines it for me is that there are different but distinct and definite victory conditions to the game. In the original game, I believe this was just conquest and science. So either you take every capital of every player that started on the map, or you successfully launch a space program and colonize Alpha Centauri, and that's how you win the game. But as opposed to, there's a lot of other grand strategy games out there that don't really have a win condition. If you play Crusader Kings, you're just kind of doing whatever you want until time runs out, or Europa Universalis or Hearts of Iron or any of those Paradox games. But also that there are those different strategies which you can play into based on kind of which victory. Because that's pretty much how I approach the game. Is like every time I pick a civ and I'm like, okay, what victory am I going to go for? And you do have opportunities to pivot, but it kind of, there's different play styles. And you're kind of always trying to optimize for at least one of those, or maybe one with a second as a backup. But essentially it is, you grow your nation, and you want to reach one of those goals. So in the original, it's domination or science. Those appear in every game. Depending which game you're playing, you might also have a culture victory, a diplomatic victory, a religious victory, or is there one I'm forgetting? Well, there's score victory, but I never count that. Because that's basically the default. If no other condition is met by turn whatever, it tallies up a total score for you. There are, of course, other kind of things you can focus on that don't play directly to a victory condition. Like trade is often a focus for a particular civilization, or particular things you can do, which just gives you money, and you can use money to buy all kinds of things, which might help you. But really it is, so you build up your cities, you grow them big, and you're trying to pursue those things. Another is building wonders. And aesthetically, I guess, from the other side of it, instead of just all the nuts and bolts of gameplay, which is usually what I get hyper-focused on, it's kind of like a celebration of what makes humanity's achievements. So it's very much like it kind of is nice for the history buffs. You might recognize some of these leaders or great people, or like the world wonders that you have access to build. You can build the pyramids or the Hanging Gardens of Babylon or whatever. That's usually a big feature too. So yeah, I don't know. Am I leaving anything out?
I think that covers as far as I know.
Yeah.
I think that's a good little summary of like what the game offers, like, how it plays. It's not, or at least from my memories, it's not necessarily it's not a real-time strategy game, right? So you're not, it's turn-based, and so it's not necessarily a fast-paced game where you're just like cranking out units to go conquer or protect your space or whatever. You have to really decide what it is you want to focus on each turn.
Yeah, I mean, you're making decisions every turn about how to allocate resources, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the resources are pretty much allocated automatically. There's different ways you can optimize it. But essentially, you have a map which is randomly generated. So this is a reason you can play this game for 300 hours, is every map is different. And every tile has resource yields, right? And there's different, but basically you want to build cities where the resources are. And then you want to improve those resource yields through basically engaging with all the different systems that the game has set up for you, by building wonders, by building buildings in your city, by connecting your cities with trade routes, connecting to other players with trade routes, which could be multiplayer or single player. I think most people play the game single player. I've always wondered what a long-term multiplayer game would be like, especially where everyone else is human. I've played two-player. We usually kind of team up against the AI in that case. But I do wonder how diplomacy might go between human players over the course of, especially over the extended course of a game.
Yeah, things might get a little sour.
Well, and ultimately, over the course of a game, a player, be they AI or human, might get eliminated. So I do wonder how people deal with that, if that's the case. But that is one kind of issue I've had with the game. I find the beginning of the game is always the most exciting. as you're uncovering the map. And I think this is true of every iteration of the series. You're uncovering the map and you're kind of planning ahead. Where do you want to build cities? What do you think you want to focus on? And the end of the game, you're kind of just letting that play out. And oftentimes I have found myself in a situation where I've basically won, but it takes like another 100 turns to actually reach the win condition. And that can be a little frustrating when you just want to get it over with, so to speak. I've had a lot of games I've ended without actually playing to the finale for that reason, as well as a lot of the time I just restart to see a new map, because I think that's the most fun part of the game is finding a new map. And especially with some of those like game plans I have based on like interesting leader bonuses I see and changing map types, I'm kind of chasing like this golden start a lot of the time, where I'm like, oh, if I could just like start next to this resource and have, you know, and then I finally do, of course, and then like barbarians just invade me right away and I can't fight them off and I lose, and I'm like, well, back to the endless shuffle. But yeah, it's, as you said, turn-based. I definitely feel that that comparison to I've had some frustrations with real-time strategy games too, because of just the micro-manage heavy stuff. And it's nice to not have to worry about that, and to just say, okay, it's a turn-based game. I can take my time if I need to, and I can automate things if I need to, and it's fine. So, John, have you played much? Just a little bit? Any familiarity?
I think I played the tutorial of Civ 6 on PC. I think I did this last year. I don't have a whole lot of experience with turn-based strategy, mostly real-time strategy for me. Like I played, I was struggling to think of another game like Civ that I might have played. I know we talked about Spore for a minute. I played a lot of Spore, which is slightly different. That there is not really turns. I think it's constant action, but it's not in a way that it's like real-time strategy. It's a little bit different. It's kind of hard to explain. It's more like just colonizing than anything. But trying to think about some other games that I don't think I really have played a whole lot of anything that I could think of. Almost everything that I had messed around with is either a city builder or a real-time strategy. So,
gotcha. One that's very similar that I did play a substantial amount of is Dungeon of Endless, which I think is the sequel actually to Endless Space. Very much, you know, hexagonal grid, resource yields. It was actually very interesting having played that, because unless I'm misremembering, it came out before Civilization 6. And they actually did what they did with their city building, where you build districts on tiles and they sort of occupy that tile and have different yields based on what's next to them. That's in Civ 6. And I think to this day, there are like Civ 5 diehards who don't like that. And they're like, keep that in Endless. Don't put it in Civilization. I love it, actually. It's actually one of the reasons I get so excited about a new map, is because I see all the things there and I'm not just planning out my cities, but I'm planning out my districts. I'm like, oh, I see mountains. I can rush holy sites and build holy sites next to the mountains and get, especially, I don't know if we'll get that into the weeds on this, if you had like favorite civilizations or leaders, but one of my favorite to play is Byzantium. And they benefit a lot from rushing holy sites early, especially Theodora, because Civ 6 actually has multiple leaders per nation. So it actually swaps like a single bonus. But all this to say, they can benefit a lot from maximizing adjacency bonus on a single district, the holy site. So I've had games where, like, as soon as I build that holy site, I'm getting like plus 10 faith, plus 10 production, plus 10 culture from it, which is kind of nuts for a single tile. But yeah, it's fun to do stuff like that. Like I said, I've played a lot. I've played on every difficulty as well. That is an interesting thing about the series, is that the AI does not get smarter. But as you turn up the difficulty, the AI starts to basically has a multiplier on their resource yields. So they're just as dumb as always, but they have like twice as much stuff as you by virtue of just being the AI on max difficulty. I've found that after I've successfully, I definitely cheesed it in some ways, but I've completed the game on deity difficulty more than once, I think. So it runs like 1 to 8, and 4 is the point at which it's parity. The AI is not getting any bonuses against you. You're not getting any bonuses compared to them. I kind of prefer playing on 5 or 6. Part of that being, I've found that even on 4, like, I'll take over an enemy city and I'll be like, this city is terrible. They didn't even like build anything here. Like, what were you doing? Come on. I don't even want this.
Wasting your time.
So yeah, I kind of like playing a little bit higher, because at 8 it almost feels like you have to exploit certain things. Well, you pretty much have to invade is one of the things. And the other thing is you can't really get ancient era wonders like ever, because you just will never can match the AI's production level. They will always get it first. And when they, at least in 6, it was the same in 5 too. When multiple players are trying to build a wonder, if somebody else builds it before you, you salvage some of your resources used to build it, but you can't get it. They're one of a kind. So whoever builds it first gets it. So it feels almost like it limits the possible strategies. You almost have to go on the offensive, because one thing the AI is really bad at is the actual micromanagement of military units. They just don't place them intelligently. So even though they have more of them, you can usually win by just moving units out when they're low on health and recovering HP instead of letting them die, which the AI will do. So yeah, that's why I like playing on medium high difficulty. But yeah, it's just fun, all those little things. Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever got that deep in the weeds that you have like preferred strategies or like even just a preferred victory condition that you like going for.
Being so long, I don't recall exactly the different civilization or preferred or anything like that. But I do. I always liked the idea of trying to go the route of science and advancements rather than just taking over everything. I don't know. Maybe I just thought it was more noble at the time.
Science victory is probably one of the most reliable ones, I think. I had a roommate that I mentioned before the show started that I'd kind of got into Civ a little bit, and he like almost always goes science victory. I think it's kind of the easiest in a way, especially compared to like culture. Because the thing about science is that optimizing your development towards high science, you might not have as many units if somebody else tries to like invade you, which is the biggest thing that can derail your plans, is somebody else just going to war with you.
Overpowers you, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have the better technology, your units are going to be stronger.
Right.
And especially if you build tall, which depending on the game can be a really good strategy or not. Basically building a couple really big cities instead of building a lot of small cities. It's pretty easy to defend. You only have a few cities. You make sure they're all, fortified with the best stuff and just one or two of the best units, and you're pretty safe. It can take a while, but it's usually a pretty surefire way to win, I think. I found as I started playing the game more, I started doing Culture Victory just because it's very complicated and probably the hardest one to win, but I just kind of found it interesting. Because there's a lot of weird mechanics and systems you might not ever touch unless you're intentionally trying to win a Culture Victory. The one I didn't like in 6 was Diplomatic, because I actually would win it by accident a lot of the time, which was kind of weird. But that was something they introduced in an expansion. It didn't exist at first. They did a world council that every so many turns would vote on stuff, and it would put certain bonuses and penalties into effect, and it was based on voting. And basically, Diplomatic Victory happened if you voted. You would earn points if you voted for the majority vote. And I think you had to get to 20, you would win. Now, the one thing that kind of keeps it from being almost automatic is once a player gets close, one of the things that everybody will vote on is to take points away from you or award points to you. But there are ways to buy influence, and it's mostly by having a lot of city-state allies. So you can actually, if you amass enough influence, you can basically give yourself points at the end and get yourself over from 18 to 20. And yeah, I literally would win it by accident or reach the point where I could do that if I wanted to when I was trying to win a Culture Victory. Just because it doesn't take as long. But yeah, I mean, military is always a strong option. But it can be really tedious on a big map. Religion is an interesting one to push as well, because that, I think, affords some of the earliest wins. Because you can really, depending on what everyone else is doing, it's another one that the AI was just bad at defending. I think any sensible human player would just go to war on you once you start converting them, but the AI just doesn't. So you can just keep sending missionaries every turn. But yeah, it's funny stuff like that. One interesting trait of the AI that I want to get to is what I call nuclear Gandhi, which is definitely a long-standing meme in Civilization. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about when I mention those words.
No.
But so there's kind of a mimetic status. This has since been an official part of the game. But there is this. So every Civilization game, except I think this is one thing people are complaining about in 7, has Gandhi as a possible leader. I think he's not in it yet. Probably making him DLC. But Gandhi is a particular leader, and of course he's known as for non-violent resistance. And the absurdity of Gandhi threatening you with nuclear weapons is just funny. And number 2, that players had observed that not only is that a thing that can happen in Civ, it's actually extremely likely to happen. So there's kind of a urban legend, so to speak, that the Civilization code had a warmonger value for each leader, set on intensity, and that Gandhi's was set to 0. It was 0 to 10 or something like that. That Gandhi's was set to 0, and that there was a nuclear deterrence effect. Once nuclear weapons enter the equation, people are less likely. So there's a negative value imposed on that. Yeah. But because Gandhi's was already at 0, it would actually like overflow and go to like 11 or something like that. Sid Meier in his book actually writes about this. He actually debunks it. He's like, no, there is no such thing in the code. I made the game. I'm telling you, it's not real. But he also admits that it's super funny and understands why people accept that explanation because it sounds quasi-plausible. There is kind of a real propensity, and that's because in Civ 1, he explains, like, in Civ 1, there is no leader-specific AI. So the only reason Gandhi is a little bit more likely to nuke you is because he has population growth bonuses. Population growth bonuses tend to lead to high science yield. He tends to be the guy who gets nukes first. And the AI, when it knows it has nukes before you, will use them to threaten you. But because it's such a meme, in the later games, like, it's funny because they have these, like, leaders go on the screen and they have, like, voiceover lines and things. And, Gandhi behaves like you would expect him to when, you first meet him, when you're offering trade deals and things. But he has, some very interesting lines when he's declaring war on you. Because he completely does a reversal of his personality to just say, you know what, this pacifism crap, I'm through with it. You're the worst. So that is, that's just one of the things. I really do like Civ 6. It was controversial when the game came out. It went to a more stylized portrayal of like the human characters, particularly. A little bit more cartoonish. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people liked Civ 5's more realistic kind of depictions. Really grew on me over time. I liked it at first, though. I mean, I'm not a guy who's really obsessed with realism. But one thing I always appreciated is those voiceover lines. Everybody speaks their own language. Even the people who speak languages we don't know what they sound like. I mean, presumably they got somebody, some expert, some consultant to tell them, yeah, this is our best guess of what, ancient Akkadian sounds like. It's kind of interesting to hear, and you can kind of pick it out, if you know different languages. There's some little Easter eggs for you there, I think. So well, I've been rambling a bit, so I don't know if you guys have anything to add, or if this just makes no sense to you.
This is what we were expecting, I think, since we have less experience.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's been some side games. You've mentioned a couple of them that are Civilization games, but not necessarily one of the main entries. But I remember there being a big thing about, there was one on the DS. I remember there being some controversy about it, but now I cannot remember exactly what it was. I don't know if people just thought it was a toned down version too much, or I don't recall. I think it was. I see it regularly at my local, and I don't think for a whole lot, but I should pick that up just to see, because I think the DS might be a pretty good platform for a Civilization type game.
It's like it was Civilization Revolution,
so it would control a lot like a mouse.
And hopefully we can get. I know Civilization 6 does not have a great port for the Switch from everything I've seen and heard. But maybe with the Switch 2 looking like it might have a built-in mouse support with its new Joy-Con, maybe this is something that actually could be a better port than most of the rest of the consoles, depending on how well it's used, if that is in fact true.
Yeah, and you've still got the touchscreen too, so
right.
But the mouse would give you a docked option as well that you wouldn't have had. One other thing I did want to just give praise to where it's due is the series music, which you don't always think of at first, but one of the little fun facts I carry around with me is that the Civilization 4 main theme by Christopher Tin is the first, and I believe to date still only, piece of music composed for a video game to win a Grammy Award. So, that speaks to its quality somewhat. I believe there was like a album released after that included it. So Christopher Tin's kind of I don't know if you'd call it classical composer, but he does music, and this is one of his songs that was on that album, and that song actually did win a Grammy. That song being Baba Yetu, which is a really good song. And it really conveys the kind of idea of winning a game of Civilization, because the lyrics to the song, it does have lyrics, and they are the Lord's Prayer in Swahili. So it kind of it conveys the idea of winning a game of Civilization pretty well. And he's done the themes for 6 and now 7 as well, which kind of follow on the same lines. The Civ 6 theme definitely grew on me as well. It has lyrics all in Latin, and they're all about flight. So it's kind of the science victory side of achieving flight and even into space. And Civ 7's theme, I've heard different takes on that, because a lot of people have kind of picked up on that, like they're almost like different kinds of civilization victory. Civ 7's theme includes stanzas from the Iliad in the original languages, from the Iliad, from Beowulf, and from whatever the Hindi one is called. I can't pronounce it. But it's like the India's great epic. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Some people say it's the domination victory, but it almost seems more culture victory to me. But they are all kind of like about warriors too, so I can kind of see that angle.
But they were about warriors, but they weren't about domination, in those stories.
They're not about conquering monsters sometimes. Grendels and
whatnot.
I don't know, maybe. It's just, I find that pretty cool. And just in general, like again, I think the music plays into kind of that wider idea of like celebrating cultures across the world, and you hear a lot of that come through, especially in the more modern games where they have the benefit of having that much data to shove in the game and that much budget to get music to represent everybody. Is pretty cool. If you go for culture victory, you'll even make great musicians, and you'll hear little samples of their stuff.
Nice. That's kind of cool. All right. Well, I will say that you've definitely got me.
Yep.
Kind of wanting to try it out again after, almost how many years?
And I mean,
since 1996,
it's several iterations too. So there's a lot, but I do think 6. I assume 7 is the same way, is pretty good in letting you learn things, because really the way it's set up, it's just going to ask you to make a decision every turn. So you're never really going to miss out on the ability to do a thing. You just might not make the best possible choice. Mm-hmm. But that does make a pretty gentle on-ramp, because it's not like you're going to realize, oh, I didn't even know I could do that. It's like, okay, well, the game tells you, like, your city will always make a thing. You just choose what it's going to make. Are you going to make a scout? Are you going to make a building? Are you going to make a settler and make a new city? Mm-hmm. And you'll just be presented with those choices turn after turn. And there will be more of them every turn as you keep growing. So that is where you can get a little bogged down. But usually by that point, you have good momentum and can get to the end of the game anyway.
Excellent.
Yep, definitely going to have to go back and revisit.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah, we don't have a community couch this time, but anybody have some experiences with Civilization they want to share? Anybody want to tell me why Civilization 3 is actually the best one and we all just missed it? I'd love to hear about it. I would. Maybe I need to pick it up. But until then, this has been another RetroLogic podcast. Thank you for listening. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, you can check us out on Blue Sky at retrologic.games, and you're welcome to jump into our friendly and free and non-toxic Discord community. And the link to that is in the bio. You can find everything at our website, retrologic.games. Thank you, and have a good night.
Bye now.
Night.